based in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. Trace?
Phil Keating, Live Force in Cherokee Nation. Phil, thanks very much. Well, after leading his communist country for nearly 50 years, Fidel Castro is handing over the reins. It is our top story at the bottom of the hour. The Cuban president announcing his resignation in a letter. Castro saying his failing health prevents him from staying in power. He has not been seen in public since having emergency surgery more than a year and a half ago. That's when he temporarily turned over power to his brother Raul Castro. Before Castro got sick, Raul spent decades in his brother's shadow. Now that he's officially in charge, we wanted to know, who is Raul? Let's bring in Daniel Restrepo with the Center for American Progress. That's a liberal think tank based in Washington, D.C. And Daniel, Cubans are not getting a kinder, gentler Castro.
They certainly aren't. Raul Castro has a pretty dark history as the head of the armed forces in Cuba since the beginning of the revolution. In the early days of the Castro regime, he was in a lot of ways Fidel's hatchet man. He, however, has been more pragmatic in recent years, particularly in the mid-1990s. But how Raul will govern and whether it'll actually be Raul is something of an open question.
Yeah, and you say hatchet man, and we just want to let our audience know that Raul, after Batista was overthrown in '59 and '60, he killed hundreds of people, even was known to kill his best friends. We're talking about Raul here. And the question everybody has, and a lot of these guys, Daniel, the presidential candidates kind of all said the same thing. We're hoping for democracy in Cuba. We're hoping for change. How much change do you expect to happen?
Look, I'm not sure we can expect a whole lot of change until Fidel Castro is dead. It's obviously important.
But even when he dies, does the brother just keep carrying the reign?
It's going to be difficult for the brother to keep carrying the reign. He doesn't have the charismatic leadership or revolutionary legitimacy, if you will, in the eyes of the Cuban people. And the Cuban people are demanding change. Their daily lives are pretty miserable. The government can't meet the daily food requirements of a lot of people in Cuba. So there's going to be a desire for change. And I also think there's probably reformers in the ranks of the Castro regime right now. They're very well advised to keep their head down until Fidel Castro is dead, because he hasn't been very welcoming of dissent. So it's really hard to say what happens after Fidel. I think we can fairly say that not a whole lot of change is going to occur on either side of the Florida Straits until Fidel is dead.
Well, I guess that's the next question here. I mean, do we just sit and wait? Are we still in sit-and-wait mode for Fidel Castro to die? Or should the U.S. maybe be more proactive in opening up the gates, the trade gates?
I think the U.S. should be more proactive, largely because you have a group of guys who are now going to be in charge of Cuba who've never really made any decisions on their own. And for the last 19 months, the U.S. government has done them the favor of handing them the exact same playbook that they're used to. And that's probably not the best thing if you want to shake things up and make them at least think on their feet a little bit. So if we want to make an uncertain environment for them, the status quo actually plays to their hands and continuity on the island, and I don't think that should be U.S. policy. We should have a more flexible.
Daniel, I have 10 seconds left. I want to know how much power you think Fidel still wields right now.
An enormous amount of power. He's still Fidel Castro, and until he passes from this earth, he's the most important person in Cuba.
Yeah, that seems to be a consensus. Daniel Restrepo, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Well, fresh controversy.